Welcome to Automation Hunter, the podcast for entrepreneurs and businesses ready to scale smarter. In this series, Apps, Hacks, and Bounties, your host, Will Christensen, dives into game-changing tools and strategies alongside special guests, sharing insights to boost productivity and solve real business challenges. Ready to innovate? Let's dive in.
All right. Welcome to this episode of Automation Hunter. This is Apps, Hacks, and Bounties. I'm your host, Will Christensen, and I am super excited. I have Summer Miller here. Summer and I met through the FRAC 2024 conference and just kind of that whole group. So Fractionals United, amazing, awesome community. FRAC 2025 is coming. Pretty cool stuff. Summer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're going to dive right in, Summer. Tell us just in 2 to 3 sentences, what do you do? What do you add to the world in the world of business and growing and change and all of the above?
Well, I help businesses navigate change without leaving people behind. So it's all people-centered change, education, and advising.
Love it. Love it. I help. That is a very solid value proposition. I find that that's one of the big challenges that a lot of business owners have, especially new fractionals. And I know you're not new to that game. So I love that you've nailed that, right? Like I help people implement change without leaving people behind in their businesses, and I was able to repeat it with some semblance of nailing it, even though it wasn't exactly what you said. That the meaning was there, right? Like, and that's I find a lot of business owners have a hard time articulating that. So, okay, tell me about apps that you've come across that have helped upskill or uplevel your productivity in automation, AI, all of the above. What would you say there?
I'd say one that I started using this year is Loom. And that's, I was using Zoom recordings before, which was a little bit clunky. And I just needed something where I could do like quick educational content, quick overviews, send people something that they could react to where we couldn't have a conversation or it was a follow-up to a conversation.
Yep. That's
been a really useful one for me this year.
I love it. Loom is one, I've been using a Loom-like software for several years now. And I finally, earlier in the year last year, the business owner that I was his fractional CMO. He bought Loom for the whole company. And I've been on Loom paid ever since. And I think the thing that was interesting for me is it's really the easy button for educational or screen recording. And for me, it's eliminated hundreds of meetings. Would you say that it's eliminated hundreds of meetings for you as well?
I would say probably not as much as I could have. At this point, I'm using it a lot for kind of meeting follow-up, quick overviews. I teach at a couple of universities as well. So sometimes I'll do a quick recap or an overview or reaction to something a student has sent me. And that's a kind of a side thing to my business, but it's super related because I focus on education in both settings. That's been more of the use for it. But I think that I probably can dabble in some new spaces with it. I've used it for what's obvious, right? Not maybe for other things.
My invitation to you is anytime you have a meeting, ask yourself, could this be a Loom video? When you have that urge that's like, oh, I need to sync up with that person, or like, oh, I need to show them how this works, or, oh, I need to make sure that I delegate this properly. I've actually found that a Loom video is more effective than a face-to-face jump on there because it's asynchronous. So my wife and I, for example, we love talking about the budget. That's a total lie. We do not like talking about the budget. That's just a normal thing. I think that, at some point, I think relationships mature to the point where they're like, okay, yeah, the budget's not that big a deal. Still a big deal over here. We're working on it. We are implementing a Loom process. And what that means is she goes over the budget because that's her responsibility. We've divided that up and she's in charge of kind of categorizing our transactions and using Rocket Money or Monarch or whatever we end up with. We're currently evaluating some tools. When she gets through that, she wants to send me, she's like, okay, now I want to sync up with you. And that's kind of an emotionally charged moment, right? Like, it's like, oh, now we got to go over and figure out what we're going to cut. Everybody's like, oh. I discovered in my business when I was having a situation like that where someone dropped a ball and I was actually upset about it, recording a Loom video, since there's not an actual person on the other end of it yet, right? Like I get to decide whether or not to send it. It's almost like drafting that angry email and then deleting it. I don't know if you've had that experience where you're like, oh, this doesn't need to be sent anymore. I'm no longer angry about this.
For sure.
So that's one cool thing about Loom is you can hit the re-record button and say it nicer. So that's one thing I found that's been amazing.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I found is, even if you do share it with emotion, you're sharing it with your face. You can turn on the video. You're sharing it with your voice. So it's not asynchronous communication where you're like texting, because I found that texting, you immediately read it in the worst possible tone that it could be.
Yeah.
And so in this situation, you get to actually see the face and the voice, and there's a screen. And then the cool part is you don't have to respond immediately either. So if that draws some emotion, that feedback gets uncomfortable, you can wait and record a Loom video back.
Yeah.
And so the asynchronous communication, but that includes all of this, really powerful body language and all of that other stuff. I've completely eliminated many, many meetings giving hard feedback, outlining a specific process with Loom.
Yeah. Well, and I thought about using it. Sometimes I have an admin and she and I will be we don't meet a lot in person, but sometimes it's just, hey, you just set this up in HubSpot. Like, how do I do it? Right. Because she's doing the whole figure it out. And then I just need to be educated on what do I need to know. Yeah. It's a way that she could maybe help do that where I can watch it when I'm available, but we don't need to wait for next week's meeting, stuff like that.
My favorite situation in that is it actually creates an instantaneous summary and little chapters at the bottom of it. And so you can skip through it to the parts that are most important, or you can take that summary and slap it into ChatGPT and say, will you summarize this in this way? And all of a sudden you don't even have to watch the video because it's made this comprehensive summary that you can just skim through. So it's been pretty fascinating to see how Loom shifts that. Two things that I'll mention. I found an app called GUIDDE. So guide with 2 Ds. Okay. And, I supposedly it does some really amazing things that Loom's not quite doing yet in terms of how it records and it circles things on the page when you talk about them and just using AI to really up level. I haven't tried it yet. I'm excited to try it. I want to toss it out there just because it's a cool tool. The second thing I want to mention is on these Automation Hunter videos, I do a lot of just app reviews and things like that. And I've started to use a platform called OBS. It's an open source platform. It lets you kind of massage things into play. And I found that it's really made my video quality go through the roof. It's not an easy button. So that's not in the easy button category, but if you're looking to get out there and create professional content and like do the recording and everything, it's taken me a while to set it up, but it's been a cool replacement for Loom when I'm wanting to upscale the content creation that I'm throwing out there.
Yeah. Those will be cool to check.
Yeah. Check it out. Okay, next question. Hacks. Yeah. Let's get into hacks. What hack or process change have you helped clients implement or have you implemented that's made a dramatic impact for you?
Because I focus on people-centered change, usually I'm coming in and they're already doing something. It's probably not working well around how they manage change. They're doing stuff, the mechanics, right? The process of it. And people don't want to grow with them, don't want to do the things. There's kind of fatigue and people are angsty. All of that happens. And sometimes there's this sense that it's just too hard to make it about the people, right? To focus on people. And I think one of the easiest things to do is to simplify it to say, there's just 3 types of things that you need to do. Like you could do a million things, right? But if you only do these 3 things, it's focusing on connection at the intellectual, emotional, and relational level.
Okay.
People need that stuff from a brain-based perspective. And you don't need to over-engineer it. It is saying we're going to have 2-way conversations instead of 1-way, right? And we're going to actually ask questions instead of assuming. And it's the basic stuff that people just blow past. And we're going to actually involve people so they're participants and not recipients of change. There's little things that you can make tweaks on that make a huge difference, but sometimes we make it way bigger than it has to be.
Okay, so go over those 3 again. What are the 3?
So it's intellectual, emotional, and relational connection.
Intellectual, emotional, and relational connection. And if you focus on creating more of that with your team, the change comes much easier.
It does, because people are a part of it. It's not happening to them, it's happening with them. Just by the fact that you're involving them and you're talking. And it allows them space to deal with the stuff that they feel. Because when you're trying to really make a relational and emotional connection, it means you have to care about a person's starting point. It's not a one size fits all. It's a conversation. And that doesn't feel efficient for companies. So sometimes they'll plan changes to be kind of top down. We're going to push down the things and we want people to do those things, make the change happen. But people don't want to go with you. At that point, they're just doing it out of duty or compliance. I'm going to do this because it's my job or because I'll get in trouble if I don't.
So they're not emotionally bought in, which means you got some resistance right there.
Yeah. You want them to have desire-based commitment. And that means that they believe in the potential good of the change. They don't have to have chosen it or designed it in the same way, because usually we would all do things our own way, right? We have this desire to have autonomy. But if you can kind of wrap your head around, there's good here, I see some possibility, I see some potential, you can have more of a desire to grow with that company, to step into that change and participate. It doesn't take a whole overhaul of your change program to get people to have more desire to grow with you. They just need to be a part of it.
Interesting. So in the briefest of briefest, because I think we could spend like 6 hours talking about this and talking about like how to increase those 3 things. And that actually might honestly be an interesting future episode where we literally just dig into those 3 things. But what is one question or action you can take to increase each of those things to take away for the audience?
For each of them, I would say for intellectual connection, it's asking about how have they helped the change connect to individual people. So it's not just information sharing, but it's how are they making individual connections? So wrapping their head around it. How are they wrapping their hearts around it? It is emotional. So that's asking kind of how have you helped people navigate from their starting point?
Interesting. Okay.
And understanding what leaders have done or will do around that. And relational is how have you made it safe for people to ask questions and be part of this?
Man, I love that. So increasing the safety across all 3 of those, and not only increasing that safety, but also this almost what popped into my mind was the EOS: get it, want it, and have capacity for it. Like there's definitely some different sides to that are kind of fascinating. Well, I think we can talk about that for the entire rest of the episode. So shifting to our third topic, because we've got a third one to go into. Tell me about a bounty. Is there an app or a hack that you're currently hunting, a process change or a new app that you'd like to implement that you're on the hunt for, or you're evaluating tools right now?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm using, and it probably is not the best tool. So
Sure.
I told you earlier, I think I use Otter.ai for a lot of things, right? Transcription tool, kind of capturing notes and so forth. I use that as a writer because I often don't have time at my desk to do writing. So I'll ideate using it when I'm driving, because there's an app on the phone that I like to use, and I'll just hit record. I'll just talk through my ideas to help to generate content for writing that I can later clean up with AI, or I can go in and edit myself or whatever, right?
I cannot even wait to share with you what I'm going to share with you. What don't you love about it?
I think it's not structured enough maybe for what I need. I still have to figure out like, what do I do with this mess of transcription, right? Because I still want it to be my writing. I want it to be my voice and stay true to that. I can throw it in ChatGPT or some tool and it will polish it, but it's not my voice anymore, right? So I'm still trying to figure out what's the right way to tackle this so I don't lose my voice in the process.
Okay.
So that's my challenge.
Are you on the ChatGPT Plus, like the $20 a month thing that ChatGPT does?
I'm not, but I could be. Okay. Tell me why I should be.
So I challenge you to go start that free trial because they've got like a free month's trial or whatever. Do they? It's a good question. I feel like I had a free trial, but I've been paying for that thing for like over 2 years. I've been paying that thing for a long time. Soon as I really got into it, I was like, wait a second, I'm running out of I want the more advanced version and I'm not getting it. They have a mode where it's called advanced voice mode. And the advanced voice mode is good enough that I've actually challenged it to walk me through a therapy session before, and it worked. Now, I do not recommend that to anyone who hasn't done a lot of therapy. I've done 3 years of EMDR. Like I've got hundreds of hours of emotional literacy training outside of that. So like I've got a lot of experience. So I was able to call it out when I was like, hey, no, that's not how this should go. And it would course correct. So as long as I was able to course correct it, it really helped me come up with some new epiphanies. And I just told it, hey, pretend you're an expert in this modality of therapy and walk me through some exercises, for what's there. The cool part is while I'm driving, it works beautifully. It right through my AirPods Pro or whatever else. I've got it in my ear and it can hear me through them. It's like I'm on a phone call, but I'm on a phone call with ChatGPT. The amazing part is that it's all going into a conversation thread in ChatGPT. So then when I say, okay, now turn that pontification, into an article, into a chapter of my book, into whatever, it has your voice. It has your voice right there. And I found that one of the ways that I reverse engineer my voice out of ChatGPT is by asking it, what prompt would you give to put this in my voice. Here's samples of my writing. And you can begin to understand what words it uses to describe your tone, because you have a tone, right? And just like any recipe, if you understand enough of the words associated with the recipe, you'll be able to replicate it with some level of accuracy. So those would be the two things that I would say. And voice mode, I mean, they've got it to the point now where it'll actually allow you to turn on a video and you can like tell it to read things. So like my wife and I split up our chores. We're in the mode of, playing that game. We have this card game called the Fair Play game. And it's got like 100 and some odd cards in it. And you and your spouse go through it and you divvy up the cards for who's doing what. It's actually really telling because it's got a really awesome category for like the drudgery stuff. And she had way too much drudgery and I didn't even see it. It was hard to see. But when I saw the stack of cards on her table, I was like, okay, I need to take a few of those. The cool thing was I was able to hold the card up in front of the camera and say, read this card and remember that it's mine. Read this card and remember that it's mine. And it read them. And then I took the cards and I said, now repeat back to me the 48 cards I just gave you. And the first 10, it got perfect. I was like, oh, no, you're out of order. And it was like, oh, you're right. And it fixed it. Like it was unreal levels of cool because it could see what I see. This thing, I could not recommend more the driving companion for writing than I can this. And the coolest thing about it is, and I've done this a couple of times, Summer would like to know how she could use this advanced chat mode in the car.
Hey, Summer, you can use this advanced chat mode in the car for hands-free help, like getting navigation tips, playing podcasts, or even
what about writing? Like she wants to write while she's driving. She's using Otter.ai right now. How could she use you instead?
Got it. For writing while driving, she can use voice commands to dictate notes or ideas. I can help her capture thoughts in real time and organize them, acting as a hands-free assistant. Otter.ai is great for transcription, but I can assist with immediate feedback, reminders, and more.
Amazing. And you've got access to like the whole world of everything in terms of change management and all sorts of other things like that. So you could even probably help her brainstorm.
Absolutely. I can help her brainstorm ideas, organize thoughts, and provide insights on topics like change management. It's like having a knowledgeable co-pilot to assist with whatever she needs.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you for coming on as a short guest on our episode of Automation Hunter. You've been fantastic today. I'm sure we'll have you in another episode.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure joining you today. Looking forward to the next episode. Take care.
So, cool. I mean, the thing that blew my mind when I actually sat down and started looking at this was I can interrupt it. You saw me. I did interrupt it and it just paused. Oh, you want me to talk about it this way? Like, I was like, that wasn't out in the first mode. The first mode that they have, it wouldn't let me interrupt it. It wouldn't let me toss out those different things. So that's the hack I would share with you and app. Try rather than just transcribing, because that's kind of a one-way street. Go this direction and let it help you brainstorm the outline and then tell it, pretend you are a professional interviewer who is really good at summarizing and creating notes. Pretend you're a ghostwriter and I want you to write in my voice about this topic. What questions would you ask me? And it just goes. So
that's cool. I mean, people could use that for so many things. I just did a mock interview with somebody and like that would be perfect for her to have used.
So I had an angry client and I gave it the scenario and said, pretend you're my client. I'm meeting with him in the morning and grill me. And it jumped on and it said, this is my concern. And this is my concern. Like it expanded in ways that I was like uncomfortable with, like how it was asking me the questions. And I'll be honest, it was meaner than my client. Like I got on the call with my client and I was way prepared for that discussion because it continued to ask me, well, yeah, but why is that valuable? Yeah, but why is that? I was like, holy crap, I had to like come back and say like, my client's not quite that aggressive. Like it was pretty impressive how well it pushed the envelope and understood the context of, hey, I want to practice this conversation.
Yeah. They should use that for like trial prep and everything too, right?
Right. So anyway, that's the answer to your bounty. And please, if you come across other situations where you're like, I'm using this, but I think there's probably something better out there, that's a bounty. And I'd love to have you on for a short episode and share with you the solution around those, because that's fantastic content for me and I'd love to help out.
That sounds awesome. I've got new things to try. Hey.
Love it. Well, that wraps up our episode today for Summer. Summer, can you tell me what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way is probably on LinkedIn, because that's where you can see all the things. So it's just Summer Miller, EDD. That's me on LinkedIn. My business is SDM Integrative Consulting. And I'm the only, like this, pretty easy. Google me, you'll find me. But yeah, those two places are the best.
Love it. Well, that's it for our episode of Automation Hunter. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.